So my screen tells me we are live right now. This is Riffing with Ryan. This is a music of work themed episode. I hope to be doing a lot of these going forward. My name is Ryan Erickson, and I'm here with a new friend who has also connected with many of my other friends, and I just think already I know a long time into the future. I can't predict the future. Can anyone predict the future? Anyway, Julie Bright is here. I will bring Julie onto the screen now. Hello. I'm going to turn down this music because I cannot hear you yet. Feeding the ducks is going to go away. Hello, Julie.
Hi, Ryan.
Hi. Well, here we are. A couple of silver spoons. Does that ring a bell with you? Maybe back in the day a little bit. Okay, so that
now I want to know what you mean. If you had said a couple of purple squirrels, I'd be right with you.
Oh, there's maybe not quite as deep a cut, but a little bit of a deep cut. But definitely a fellow purple squirrel. Rare, valuable, unique. Spreading your purple energy everywhere. I am going to start. Well, anyway, as I know, you Agile coach, have been Agile 24, kind of in that Agile-verse, the community that is not a community, as I call it, or a community of communities that blah, 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 blah. And we've talked about a few things musically, and I want to invite you into this place by, let's see, what is your Agile identity?
Wow, we're going to start right off of the gate with my Agile identity. Maybe I should have allowed you to give me the questions in advance instead of just this is meaty. It's 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yes, you.
Yeah, I chose this. So I'm good to make it up right now. My identity is Agile. I feel like the question is backwards. Like, what is your Agile identity? I feel like my core identity is Agile. I didn't have any command and control behaviors to kind of overcome when I learned that Agile was a thing in the world. It just spoke right to my soul, and I feel like it's in me. It's part of who I am, is agility, the ability to roll with the changes and inspect and adapt and sense and respond and develop deep connections with other people. I think that's at the heart of it. It's much less about practices than it is about how you show up, your self-leadership and your self-awareness, and the relationships with other people is the foundation for everything. And I don't think I could put any other word to my identity.
Well, now to be fair, that question has come up as as opposed to hey, introduce yourself. I started with who are you? Why are you here? What do you want? The Stanislavski questions, but I figured that was a little bit too, probably even weirder than Agile identity at 10 o'clock on Friday. So with that, again, the question that I would like to bring into this space now, what is your work? What is your work?
Kind of the same thing. It's a little of this and a little of that. So as a coach, I'm drawing from a wealth of pretty much other people's brilliant ideas. I think it's much less about teaching other people the right way to do X and more about listening to the context that's in the environment that you're in and trying to serve in the way people need your service. So I can tell you some of the things that I love the most as a coach, if that would help people to know more about who I am. I love complex adaptive systems, lightweight frameworks like OpenSpace and FAST is a current favorite model of minds based on open space, and also team self-selection and mob programming, or we're calling it ensemble programming sometimes. And those sorts of frameworks where people are intrinsically trusted to make the right choices for themselves in the situations, and have very lightweight rules that everybody clearly understands, and we can operate and navigate within those really easily, if there's trust and actual empowerment to do that. So I feel like the frameworks are kind of training wheels towards agility, and these broader, looser structures are actually the ones that allow you to reap the benefits the quickest and the deepest. I want to foster that.
Okay. And having said all that and felt and thought into that, I'd like to, the next question is, what is the music of your work?
We've talked about this a bunch. It's how we connected. For those of my friends who happen to be watching, if you had heard me mention how I met Ryan, because I might have done this because I'm excited about this new friendship. I loved the little purple musical notes on the sides of your name, and I saw your comments on LinkedIn at some point, and I went, I gotta meet that guy. And then I realized that we had a lot of people in common. And so as we've met a few times, just spontaneously since then, it's been a joy to me. And it's that connection to music that really drew me initially, because I think that it's a metaphor that's extremely apt when especially when we're working with other people and trying to affect change, that the music of work is really the music of ourselves in connection with other people. And I find that, well, like there's so many places I could go with this. I'm like there's my headline style here. I'm going to back up a little bit and maybe talk a little bit about when I first realized the depth of that metaphor as it applies to coaching. I was invited to an experience called circle singing, and it was invented by Bobby McFerrin some maybe 25 years ago. I'm not sure. It was a long time ago. And it's an improv vocalization activity. And what happens is you're in a circle and you're grouped by voice part. I like to sing, so this is, it's apt for me anyway. But so you just self-organize into approximate voice parts, high, low, whatever. And the facilitator gets in the middle of the circle and starts to improv a little bit around some ideas that might be coming to them, and a melody will start to take form. And when they got something they like, they'll give it to one of the voice parts, or maybe a couple of the voice parts, and then wait for those people to hold that sound and then add something to it with another voice part. And there's an art to how this is done. You have to have some sort of rhythm, and there's usually a couple of harmonizing lines that are moving in together. And then the person in the middle can improv over the top of what's going on in the circle. And while I was participating in this, it occurred to me that I was listening very deeply to all of the other voices around me and my voice among them, and realizing that I had a part to play that was important, but I didn't want it to be over the top of anybody else. You're listening very deeply, and jazz musicians will compliment each other by saying, "You have big ears." And I think we need to be that as coaches. We need to have big ears and listen really deeply and understand that we have a place in the system and it's important, but it should be additive and not like in improv, we want to keep the ball in the air. When someone throws you a ball, you want to keep that going. You don't want to just drop it and get your own thing. Instead, it's about raising everybody up, and the way that we show up in order to continue that music, that harmony, and that improv, that every interaction actually always is, right? When you're talking with another person, it's always an improv. You don't know what that person's going to say. So you're very much in the moment. And I was just so struck by how much coaching is like the stance of a improv musician who wants to add something that makes it richer and not stomp all over the top of somebody else. So the structure that I was talking about, circle singing, the leader may step out and then someone else can step in and do their own thing. And it's very emergent. So they change the melody or they'll change something about the beat. And anyone is invited to step in or step out and continue that. And it can go on, I mean, 25, 30 minutes, I think maybe the longest one that I've done. I'm sure it could go longer than that. But the sense of being really attuned to what is going on around you and how you might respond and how that response is going to add to the system and make it stronger is the music in it for me.
Hmm. It's interesting that the next thing that comes to me, that the song and the connection, the listening, and to me it makes me want to dance to that music as well. You know, that we're moving with it and listening so deeply, which I think that's so key, that having the big ears and that being the highest compliment is it's missing a lot. It's missing a lot.
What's missing?
In the deep listening, you know, the listening
You
without
don't see that often enough.
in the mechanical world, the industrial world that invites us or kind of imposes upon us in order to survive. That, okay, you got to be mechanical, you got to do this, that, the other, you need to, okay, I'm going to manage your performance because you're this far, you're this far, no, you're not good, no, you're no good. And that tends to create this fear, a little bit of fear and desire to, oh, I need to prove myself, I need to compete, and my idea needs to be out there. And I don't, you may talk to me, but it's, you say something, I'm gonna listen to form my response, not listen to integrate in this additive spirit to what you're bringing.
But it's also very vulnerable, right? And so I have done a couple of vocal improv activities based upon this in the coaching world, not like professionally at work, although I don't see why it wouldn't work, but getting a group of other coaches to improv sing with me was challenging enough when they came to a place intending to play, rather than people at work and your team's like, you're gonna sing. It doesn't always, right? You can't really easily bring that to work, but you always are. What? You got something to say?
Well, and that's the thing. In when talking about this music of work, okay, so I ask you, what is the music of your work? And it's not about, oh, I bring my trumpet, or I bring the instrument that I learn, I play piano. That can be part of it, but what I'm, the exploration in that I think is partly this connection here, is that in our conversation, what's the tempo, what's the rhythm, what are the dynamics, what's the timbre of us, and who else is in this, and am I really flowing with what they're saying? Am I using space to make impact, and that, and to not necessarily speak that as to impose, okay, everybody, we're all going to be musical, and thou shalt be musical, you're going to be musical in this way, and I'm going to, and that is typically how in the educational system, in music education, folks are kind of taught that way, in this industrialized compulsory education point. But I believe, and this is again my belief, and I hope to amplify this with folks, is that we are the music. Our humanity is this music, that we are an ensemble adding to one another, and that the self-organization, that maybe I step out of the circle and you come in and you're singing with the rhythm and you're facilitating, you're also participating in this, and this is the when each of us have a level of skill and a level of artistry and craftsmanship into what we do and technique. And when you get to this point of this maybe transcendent technique, you're not thinking about the keys or the words. You're thinking about making the art, the gift of love with people together. And that I think is the spirit of what you're talking about. In that the circle singing experience, it brings that in that visceral way. And then what might be invited to say, okay, now we're in some meeting, and now either I can sit here and be talked at and just bleh, or I can be present to the field, to whatever. And that I think is that's the magic that's there, that I believe needs to be is kind of my thing, but that it is there. And what kind of musician do I need to be the invitation for that to come out? And when it does, it is
magic.
You know?
So it's vulnerable, right? And I started to say that I've done this with other groups of mostly coaches and like-minded folk, and not so much in the business world. But the reason that I bring that up is that when I have done this work before, people are very, like, they may be willing to play, but there's this hesitancy initially, and we have a need to show up for each other. We want to be seen, and we want to be seen as good, and we want to be accepted and not rejected. And the fear of rejection, especially when you're singing, like, people are, you're going to hear my voice and maybe it's not good enough. And right. And there's all this anxiety around it. And the first thing that jumps out at me when I realized this is that we're asking other people to be vulnerable also. We're asking them to do pair programming, right? And so somebody else might see the mistakes that you make and to ask them to step willfully into a space that they're unfamiliar with, especially if they've thought of themselves as experts in their way before. We have to.
And you're saying we as coaches, we in this position of influence and authority. I'm sticky about the word we. So.
Oh, well, I mean, that's great. Like it helps me think about things in a different way. So I love that. So yes, this particular we, and the one I'm talking about it is, we as coaches need to be very empathetic to the vulnerability that we're asking other people to take. And the other thing that I learned from this work is that nothing builds bonds faster than being vulnerable with each other and having your vulnerability met with support and love. So I was at a Play for Agile North America some number of years ago in Canada, and I did a session. It was an open space style conference, and I proposed a session to do vocal improv, and the people that showed, we were in this little room, and we were total strangers, most of us. We didn't know, and it was very scary at first. But the whole rest of that conference, we felt like we were the best of friends. Like, we ate together and we did everything together. It was just this incredibly strong team building experience to choose to be willfully vulnerable in front of each other, and also choose to support one another in their vulnerability. Builds trust faster than anything I've ever seen. It's this instantaneous, heart-based connection where we're so afraid to show up as who we are that we might be rejected for who we are, because nothing hurts more than that. And when we do that, we step out of that comfort zone into the unknown, and we take that flying leap, and other people catch us. It builds incredible trust, and that's music.
And this brings me into that there are many forms of this togetherness and this being an ensemble. So that sense of I am in this loving space, in this very accepting, calm place.
You said it was calm.
Well, so that's the point I want to get to, and I've let my cat out of the room. Okay, she's out of there. Um, the that there's also this place for tension, right? That there's what's the risk of me being vulnerable? What's the danger I'm walking into of how often do we hear that public speaking is this greatest fear of the modern knowledge world? As knowledge workers, we think that and feel that, and then okay, so there's it's interesting to say, hey, who said it was peaceful? Who said it was harmonious? And
Great is not even always harmonious. Sometimes it's dissonant, but that has a place.
And it absolutely does. And this comes back when you talked about team self-selection. I wonder if you could say, if thinking back on a self-selection event, right? Because that has to happen in a whole group process where people are, whether it's online, asynchronous, or whatever, that's people choosing and opting into something like that. There's a building of ensemble there. What music do you see? What patterns are that? How relating to how you're saying this trust, respect, honesty, vulnerability? What do you see in the self-selection process that relates to that?
So the first thing that occurs to me is that team self-selection doesn't work if you don't actually have the explicit permission of leaders in your organization to do that thing. And the idea that we're going to disrupt when something isn't actually broken is very resistance provoking with a lot of people, right? When the first time I facilitated team self-selection at the big company I used to work for, the leaders really wanted to know, why are you doing this right now? Like, can we just wait until we're not constantly busy? Which I don't know when that ever might be. That doesn't happen, right? Like next sprint, right? Like, why now? What problem are you trying to fix? And my answer is like parrots Woody Zool when he says, turn up the good. We're not trying to fix a problem. We're trying to take something that's good and make it way better. How do we amplify that which is good? And when people are actually trusted to use their brains in the way that their brains are designed to be used, and follow their passion and give back in the way that they want to give back. And people do. We don't slack when we're trusted. We want to earn that trust, right? And we rise right up to it.
And this also gets back to the Douglas McGregor thing, that what is the mental model of a particular person in authority to say, no, that we can't let people choose for themselves. They need to be motivated. I need to motivate them, right, by putting some reward out there, that if I don't say that there's something out there, the people will slack off, that they're not capable of that. And the idea of theory Y is that humans are innately, intrinsically motivated to like you say, to do good, to make things better. En general, there are obviously stories that come from trauma and places of damage, hurt people. There is that, and there's a percentage of folks who don't have positive intent, right? So we, as coaches,
don't build systems around the outliers.
Well,
I mean, we do, but we shouldn't.
Well, a particular kind of, that are you building a system to prevent harm and restrict, so to put the compliance boundary around that? If you pass that boundary, I'm gonna smack you down. Or is it I'm gonna trust you, and then the boundary is something that is agreed upon, and that's invited to be participatory design, which is, I mean, it's a whole different animal. Yeah. So, and again, Hey Jude comes to mind. Take a sad song and make it better, right?
But it's nature, I think, if we have extreme complexity, we generally tend to want to double down on control. Like we think that that's the right response to VUCA. Like I'm gonna be live, and I'll always forget that VUCA is volatile, uncertain, complex, and what's the A? I always forget the A.
Ambiguous.
Ambiguous. I want to say adaptive, but it's ambiguous, right? So that's the world that we're operating in right now, more so now than ever before in human history or global history, right? And it's especially people who are held accountable for other people's work, right? Feel like if they relinquish control, that it will fall apart and then they'll be in trouble, right? And it'll look badly on them. So their instinct is to double down on control, but that doesn't work when you're in tumultuous water.
Well, and I think it's very important to say being accountable to someone else, as in a person who's holding you to account. That I am accountable to to the senior vice president of whatever, as opposed to the accountability that this is the musical ensemble thing coming back. That in ensemble, when you're closely bonded and have a deep respect for one another's mastery, a deep desire to create the piece of art that you're there to create, that it is pure accountability. That we are holding each other accountable for our part in this creation, and that if I don't feel that I'm getting what I need from you, and it is my responsibility to use the whatever it's the law of 2 feet, the law of mobility in that moment, that I owe it to you to say I need this from you because everybody else needs this from you. Can you do that? Can you do it? And this, and I bring love up all the time. I'll be the love guy. I want to be the love guy at work.
Be that all the time.
Yeah. Well, hey, who else is going to do it? Well, maybe
you're trying really hard.
Maybe you're doing it too. And this, and I want to kind of, I'll whatever, pass the baton. I'll play. This course will be my line, and then I'll invite you to the next course. There's Harrison Owen in the book, the first book that started this whole Spirit. He has a definition of love in that book, that it is, first of all, about acceptance, unconditional acceptance. I accept you. I accept you no matter what, as a beautiful and magical human being, and I love you unconditionally. Now, what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with that? So it is this combination of challenge and acceptance that I think is, hey, I accept you as part of this team, and I like holding someone to account, that we are accountable to each other in this. And I think that's where in my frame of the world, that's that kind of high performance that can happen, that is possible when that relationship is there and it's strong, and there's that respect for mastery. And so
and with team self-selection, it's again a complex adaptive system, like a traffic circle, right, as opposed to a signal light, where you know what I mean? Like we have very few lightweight rules, and everybody gets the rules, and everyone's got their own agenda, but they can see what's going on and make the right choices based upon these lightweight rules. And self-selection is the same way. So here's a team, and this is what they're going to be working on, and this is why it's important, and here's another team, and this is the people on, whatever. And the rule is do the right thing for the company. That's the law. Like in open space is the law of mobility, and there's just one law. It's like use your mobility to go where you are going to add value and where you are going to receive value. And we trust you to make that right decision for yourself. And so what happens is people are often afraid that people will make a selfish choice that will harm the company, and they're going to abandon the big project that's in flight. Or in the case of the first one that I ever did, was so learny. I learned so much from that experience. But
learny.
It was learny that there was a data team. It wasn't like data people embedded in all the teams. It was like the data team. And the leaders were really afraid that people were going to leave the data team because the work was dry and that there were shiny things going on someplace else and they'd want to do that instead. But what actually happened was the data team knew that their work was very important and that if anything fell, that it would harm the company, and they were very committed to not letting that happen. And somebody from another team that nobody even knew was interested in data went to join the team. So we actually got a bigger team because we know what we need better than other people know what's right for us, right? And so what actually emerges is that people do the right thing. And the other thing that happened, and actually this has happened a few times that I've seen, there's someone who'd really like to leave and do something else. But the work that's in flight is very important, and they are the ones that hold the knowledge. And as long as there's a commitment to run self-selection again in X period of time, 6 to 9 months or the end of the quarter or whatever that time is, that they will stay and transfer their knowledge to somebody else so that the next time we do a round of it, they can go do the thing they really want to do. And people will step up to the plate and do the right thing like every time. It's a trust exercise for sure, but we want to do the right thing. And taking those training wheels off and just allowing us to like use our superpowers in the way that we can serve the best is pretty much always the best answer.
Fantastic. Okay, so there's going to be part 2, 3, 4 to all of this. I know I feel it. This tune is we need to hit the last chorus of it now, and I will bring the final question, your final answer today. The desire I have is one of them is just to hold this safe place for dangerous conversations. And thinking about that, well, there need to be some dangerous conversations to have. And my question to you is, what is a dangerous conversation with reputational risk tied to it in your work domain, that either is not happening now or has never happened until now that you want to have happen?
I'm thinking about the definition of danger before I can answer. And you mentioned reputational risk. I'm assuming you mean like a personal risk that you would take or that I might take. I think holding a mirror up to people or organizations can be dangerous because people don't always like what they see, and you're the mirror, and that can result in a backlash. I think it's also the nature of coaching is a little dangerous in its own self because we must influence without authority. And the danger of, I don't know, like, have an idea forming in my head and it hasn't taken words yet, so give me a minute. When I have felt the most at risk at work, when I have felt unsafe, has been in work cultures which are very traditional and hierarchical and bureaucratic, where the rules are heavy and numerous. And if you take a wrong step, there's landmines. When there's a low trust culture or a punitive culture, there's a lot of fear in the organization, then almost any conversation that's trying to affect change is going to be inherently dangerous because those people have been rewarded in systems that exist for driving results and making things happen. And I think especially in big, heavy organizations, there's an expectation that you are going to tell other people what to do. And the truth is that doesn't actually affect change. It might for a short period of time, and then you can walk away, go, look, I made all these people do the thing you told me to. But as soon as you walk away, that thing will collapse. The people themselves have to be on board, and there isn't a directive that you can give people that's going to get them there. They, as Esther Derby says, they have to get their fingerprints on the change. And if they don't feel like they have any part of it, then they're going to resist and push back, and that can blow up in your face. So it's actually really important that you don't push and force and impose change. It's so important to not impose change, but if you're working in an organization that expects you to tell other people what to do, then the risk is that you will be seen as ineffective. Change is very, very slow. It's little tiny baby steps, little tiny wins. You don't wave a magic wand, thou shalt now be Scrum. Like, it doesn't work like that. Or if it does, it doesn't take as soon as you take your foot off the gas. Was that the answer to the question that you asked?
Well, it is the answer to the question. It is your answer to the question, and it's your solo, and what emerged from you is, and yeah, and that's. I don't want to comment on it. I want to just leave it where it is, which is a beautiful place because it came from you in this moment. I can't wait to do this again.
I'm so grateful to you for inviting me. I love talking with you. I always love talking with you.
The gift of your time and attention is appreciated and is also beautiful. I'm going to impose a timeout on you. I'm going to put you back in the green room, and then I'll say goodbye to all those beautiful folks out there, and we'll land safely in the back.
Be love.
Be love. Be more loving. Wow. Oh gosh, the first of many conversations with Julie, and with those of you out there who want to sing your song, and I'm happy to be a place to accompany you when you sing that song of your work, the music of your work. And with that, I thank you for the precious gift of your time and attention. Be well.